Welcome to another deep dive, this time into Kibbutz Ortel. It's in the Golan Heights. And, with the war finally ending, there's this renewed feeling of hope in the region.
Definitely a sense of optimism.
Yeah. And with that comes the chance for places like the Golan Heights, Mount Hermon, all these spots to kind of recapture the hearts of tourists.
Right. Bring people back.
Bring people back from all over Israel. We've got a pretty interesting mix of sources for this deep dive. We've got websites. We've got Wikipedia entries.
Oh, wow.
We even found some YouTube videos.
Nice.
So yeah, all these are kind of painting a picture of what makes Ortel special.
Yeah, what makes it tick. Well, one thing that really stands out is its location. Kibbutz Ortel is right there in the middle of all this, hope and history.
Right.
It's perched pretty high, up 900 meters above sea level.
Oh, wow. That's pretty high.
Yeah. And it's near a bunch of mountains, Mount Shafan, Mount Avital.
I've heard of Mount Avital.
And, of course, the famous Mount Bentel. But it's not just about the scenery, right? The Golan Heights has always been strategically super important.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's right on the border.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even today, it plays this, crucial role in regional security.
So much history there.
Tons.
Okay, so that's a lot to take in. How does a community actually thrive in a setting like that?
Right.
Well, Ortel's a kibbutz. It's like a communal settlement, very unique to Israel.
Yeah.
But it's not your grandma's kibbutz, This isn't what you see in those old movies.
No, not at all.
Ortel's a renewed cooperative kibbutz.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that actually mean for daily life?
So it basically means they've adapted with the times.
Mm-hmm.
In the old kibbutzim, it was all about shared resources, collective work. Ortel still has those core values: cooperation, mutual support.
Yeah.
But they also embrace individual freedom, economic independence.
So it's kind of a mix of the old and the new.
Exactly.
Interesting. So we're not just talking about agriculture, are we?
No. They do have the traditional stuff: orchards, vineyards.
Right.
Livestock.
Yeah.
But they've branched out. They generate income from tourism, from outside professions that members have.
So people have jobs outside the kibbutz?
Yeah, they do. And they even have some unique ventures. There's a winery.
Oh, wow.
And get this, a graphic design studio?
Wait a minute. A graphic design studio in a kibbutz?
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right?
That's not what I was expecting.
And that's not all. They've also partnered with other kibbutzim on regional businesses, like the Golan Heights Winery. There's a dairy, a fruit packing house.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're finding all these different ways to kind of bridge tradition with modern life.
Exactly.
It's pretty impressive. I'm really interested in this cooperative model, the way they share resources, the emphasis on partnership. Do you think it holds lessons for other communities, the communities that are facing economic challenges?
It's a fascinating challenge for sure. What's really interesting is that even with all this focus on individual pursuits, the communal dining hall is still the heart of Ortel. It's this shared space. Everyone gathers for meals, but it's more than just food, right?
It's about community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of research out there that shows the social and psychological benefits of communal dining.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's built-in way to combat social isolation, which is something we see so much of these days.
For sure.
But, living in such a close-knit community, some sources describe it as a big family.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that too.
That must come with its own set of challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Not for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people thrive in that kind of environment, but for others, it can be a bit much. That close-knit support can also mean, a certain level of interdependence.
Right.
The need for compromise. And that can be tough for people who really value their autonomy.
Yeah, I can see that.
And maybe that's why Ortel has created these different pathways for joining the community.
Oh, different pathways. What do you mean?
So they have full membership, which means you're really integrated, and there's a bigger financial commitment.
Okay.
And then they have this thing called community neighborhood living, which is a little more individual space.
Got it.
But you still get the benefits of the community's support network.
So there's a level of choice there.
Exactly.
Makes sense. But Ortel isn't just about adults working and interacting, right? They have a pretty unique approach to education.
Definitely. Education is like the heart and soul of the community in Ortel.
Yeah.
And they put their money where their mouth is. They've got all sorts of educational options from early childhood all the way through high school. But the thing that really caught my eye was their forest school.
A forest school?
Yeah.
What is that?
Imagine learning about nature firsthand, surrounded by the beauty of the Golan Heights.
That sounds amazing.
It's really cool.
Hands-on learning at its best. It seems like such a natural extension of their values.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got work, we've got study, but it can't be all work and no play, right?
No, of course not.
What do people do for leisure, for fun in Ortal?
Well, Odal has this really rich cultural life, holiday celebrations,
Mm-hmm.
musical performances. They have a theater, they do productions, exhibitions, lectures,
Wow.
activities for all ages. And get this, they even organize annual trips, domestic and international.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like they want to experience the world beyond the kibbutz, and maybe bring those experiences back and enrich the community.
I love that. A kibbutz in the Golan Heights jet-setting around the world. Who knew?
Okay, so we've talked about daily life, but what about for, outsiders looking in? Can anyone just visit Ortal?
Yeah,
Is tourism part of their model?
it is. They've got two main accommodation options. They have rustic-style rooms, so you can get that traditional kibbutz feel.
Okay.
And then they have these Scandinavian-style wooden cabins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And each one has a private balcony overlooking those incredible Golan Heights views. Okay, stop. You had me at balcony.
Yeah, so imagine waking up to that.
Okay, you've sold me. Those cabins sound amazing. I can just picture myself sitting out there with my coffee, watching the sunrise over the Golan Heights.
It's pretty special.
But let's be realistic. Kibbutz life isn't for everyone.
No, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
So what kind of traveler do you think would really drawn to this type of experience?
I think anyone who's looking for something authentic, something off the beaten path, somebody who appreciates nature,
Uh-huh.
who values a sense of community,
Yeah.
and is really open to learning about a different way of life. It's a chance to kind of slow down, reconnect, and maybe even gain a new perspective on what really matters.
Yeah, I get that. There's something really appealing about disconnecting from all the noise and immersing yourself in a place like Ortal.
It's definitely a reset.
Before we jump into all the other things you can do in the Golan Heights, you mentioned earlier the changing face of kibbutzim.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So traditionally, kibbutzim were very closed communities.
Uh,
But over the last few decades, a lot of them, like Ortal, have opened up. They've started welcoming new members, embracing tourism.
Interesting. Why is that? What's driving that change?
Well, a lot of it comes down to economics. Many kibbutzim had to diversify their income to survive. And tourism is a natural fit, but it's not just about money. There's a social dimension to it, too. Kibbutzim are facing the same challenges as a lot of communities around the world.
Right.
Aging populations, declining birth rates, welcoming new residents, whether they're looking for full membership or just a taste of kibbutz life through tourism.
Right.
It's a way to revitalize these communities, to ensure their future.
So it's about keeping those core values, those traditions alive.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really fascinating to see how Ortal is adapting and evolving while still holding on to the essence of what makes a kibbutz unique. Okay, so now I think it's time to shift gears a little bit. We've talked about Ortal itself, but let's zoom out and explore the wider Golan Heights region.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm sure there are tons of hidden gems out there just waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely. The Golan Heights, it's really like stepping into a different world. You've got this incredible mix of nature history and even some pretty interesting geology.
Okay, now you've got me curious. Where should we even start exploring?
Well, we can't talk about the Golan Heights without mentioning Mount Hermon. It's like the icon of the region. And with the war ending, hopefully it'll draw visitors back from all over.
Mount Hermon, yeah, that's one of the ski resort, right? I remember hearing stories about it when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's right. It's Israel's only ski resort. Imagine skiing down the slopes with views that stretch all the way across the borders into Syria and Lebanon.
Skiing with a side of geopolitics, huh? That's not something you see every day. I'm not much of a skier, though. What if I'm more of a hiker?
Oh, you're in luck. The Golan Heights has hiking trails for every level. You could check out the Gamla Nature Reserve. It's known for its dramatic cliffs. And if you're lucky, you might even catch a glimpse of the vultures that nest there.
Vultures. I think I'll admire those from a distance. Dramatic cliffs, though, I can handle that. Is there anything a little less intense?
Yeah, the Benais Nature Reserve might be more your speed. It's incredibly beautiful. The main source of the Jordan River actually springs forth there. You've got waterfalls cascading down, lush greenery. It's a much more peaceful scene.
Waterfalls and greenery. Okay, now you're talking my language. That sounds like the perfect spot to unplug and recharge. Maybe enjoy a picnic lunch. Listening to the sound of the water. Speaking of which, you mentioned something about wineries earlier.
Oh, yeah, the Golan Heights wine region. It's really become a haven for winemakers. With its volcanic soil and cool climate, some of the wineries here are producing some seriously world-class wines.
So a day of hiking followed by an evening of wine tasting. Sign me up. But let's not forget about the history buffs out there. What about ancient sites and ruins? Does the Golan Heights have anything to offer in that department?
Oh, absolutely. The Golan Heights is full of history just waiting to be uncovered. One place that comes to mind is Katzrin. It's an excavated Talmudic-era village. Gives you a glimpse into life as it was centuries ago.
That's what I find so fascinating about this region. It's not just about the present moment. You can really feel the weight of history, the echoes of those who came before. It adds this whole other dimension to the experience.
You're absolutely right. The past and the present are so intertwined in the Golan Heights, you can't escape it. If you had to pick one don't miss experience, what would you recommend?
That's a tough one. But I think for me, it'd have to be Mount Bentel. Did you say it was a dormant volcano? That already sounds pretty cool.
It is. And it's also a place with huge historical significance. During the 1967 Six-Day War, a major battle took place on its slopes, and you can still see the remnants of bunkers and trenches.
Wow, that's powerful. To think that such a beautiful place also carries the scars of conflict.
But here's what's really interesting. Right next to those reminders of war, Mount Bentel also has this cafe with the most breathtaking panoramic views. You can sit there sipping your coffee, looking out over the landscapes of both Syria and Israel. And it really forces you to confront the complexities of the region.
It sounds like a place where history and beauty really collide in a profound way.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even in places marked by conflict, hope for peace and understanding can still exist. And in a way that brings us back to Ortel, doesn't it? This community thriving in a region with such a turbulent past, striving to create a harmonious way of life amidst all the challenges.
It's interesting how Ortel's story seems to mirror that of the Golan Heights in so many ways. Makes you think about the resilience of the human spirit. But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't really touched on: the people themselves.
You're right. We've talked about Ortel's lifestyle, their unique economic model, their approach to education. But who are the individuals that make up this community? What are their motivations? What are their stories?
It's like we've seen the outline of the painting, but haven't filled in the details yet. Those individual stories are what really bring the whole picture to life. Makes me wonder if maybe that's something we could explore in a future deep dive.
I'd love to delve deeper into that aspect. But for now, let's leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question to ponder. Could the kibbutz model, with its emphasis on community cooperation and connection with nature, offer any solutions to the challenges facing our increasingly individualistic society?
That's a big question, one that deserves more than just a quick answer.
Indeed. But it's a question worth considering. As we grapple with issues of social isolation, environmental degradation, economic inequality, perhaps there are lessons to be learned from communities like Ortel that prioritize different values.
Perhaps the key lies in finding a balance between individual freedom and collective responsibility.
Maybe. And that, I believe, is the beauty of these deep dives. They allow us to not only explore new topics, but also to challenge our assumptions and open our minds to different ways of seeing the world.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from, the snowy peaks of Mount Hermon to the waterfalls of the Benias Nature Reserves.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
The Golan Heights is clearly a region with so much to offer.
Definitely.
And right in the heart of it all, you have Kibbutz Ortel,
Yeah.
this community that seems to embody that same spirit of resilience and adaptation.
What's really striking to me is how they manage to balance tradition and innovation, individual freedom with collective responsibility. It's a fascinating model, and I think it has a lot to teach us about the possibilities of communal living in the 21st century.
I totally agree. And it's not just theory.
No.
They're actually putting it into practice. They're welcoming new members, attracting tourists, finding ways to contribute to the region's economy. It's like they've tapped into something essential, something that speaks to that human need for connection and purpose.
That's such a good point. In a world that often feels so fragmented, so individualistic, Ortel offers a different way. A vision of a community that supports its members, embraces collaboration, and values connection with nature and with each other.
And it's not just about living in this, bubble. They're engaged with the world outside the kibbutz, too, through their partnerships with other kibbutzim, those regional businesses, and even those annual trips abroad.
Right.
It's a good reminder that community doesn't have to equal isolation.
Exactly. And speaking of engagement, we've talked a lot about Ortel, but we should mention the role of tourism. For anyone listening who's intrigued by what they've heard today, who wants to actually experience kibbutz Ortel and the Golan Heights firsthand, we'll be sure to include links to some websites and resources in the show notes.
Yes, definitely. You can browse their accommodation options, maybe even take a look at the menu for that Granelli cheese boutique we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But beyond just planning a trip, I really hope this deep dive has sparked some reflection.
In what way?
Well, we've talked about a lot of the challenges facing modern society: social isolation, environmental concerns, economic disparities. And here you have this community, kibbutz Ortel, that seems to be addressing these issues head on through their model of cooperative living and their commitment to sustainability.
It's a different approach, for sure.
It makes you wonder if there are lessons we can learn from them and apply to our own lives, our own communities.
That's the beauty of exploring new ideas, different ways of life. It challenges us to question our assumptions, to think outside the box, consider new possibilities.
Exactly. And maybe it inspires us to, take action, to build stronger connections, to find ways to live more sustainably, to create communities that nurture both individual growth and collective well-being. So as we wrap up this deep dive into kibbutz Ortel and the Golan Heights, we leave you with this question: what seeds of inspiration will you take with you?